All right, welcome everybody to our joint meeting between the Provo Municipal Council and the Provo School Board. It's Tuesday, September 22nd, 2022 at 12:05 p.m. Meetings of the Municipal Council are being held in hybrid fashion as members of the public can continue to view council meetings on YouTube and Facebook, or they may attend in person here at the Provo City Center. I will remind participants, well, there's no mic to mute, but just be aware that there is a mic in the middle, which may pick up side conversations as well as general ones. So just be aware of that. Maybe I'll just have everyone go around the room, starting from my left, and say your name and your association. So we have, I think it's being read into the record. My name is George Handley. I'm chair of the Provo City Council.
Melanie Hall, board president.
Justin here, doesn't have to take it. William Parker, city chief administrative officer.
Nate Bryson, school board. Travis Hogan, city council.
Derek Anderson, school district business administrator.
Shannon Ellsworth, Provo City Council.
Bill Fillmore, the late Bill Fillmore.
Oh, no.
Oh, not. Provo City Council.
Jennifer Partridge, school board member.
McKay Jensen, the school board member.
Rebecca Nielsen, school board vice president.
Perry McCabe, school board member.
Gina Hill, school board member.
Rachel Local, Provo City councilor.
Elizabeth Vanderwerken, council executive assistant. Patrice McKay, vice chair council.
Thank you. We also have Rob Hunter and Dave Day from city staff who are here for presentation of some items. And I don't know, if you remember the general public observing.
General public.
Great, glad to have you. I've asked Rebecca Nielsen to offer an opening prayer.
Our dear Heavenly Father, we're so grateful to be here today as leaders in our beautiful city and for the opportunity we have to meet together, to be able to counsel together and to learn together and to be able to do what we can for the members of our city here. And we ask for their guidance today as we meet. Bless us with their guidance and with a spirit of community and cooperativeness. And we ask for these blessings in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
All right, although this is a public meeting, only the presenters and those invited by the council may speak or ask questions. Unless otherwise invited by the chair, please wait to speak until called on. We'll start. We sort of solicited items from both bodies as to what we might want to talk about. These are some of the topics that had been suggested. So you can look over that. We have an hour, so we'd like to try to get through as much of this as we can. First item was just an update on Timpview High School, including sports programs and long-term parking plans. So is there somebody from the school board that would like to address that?
We're actually in there.
Oh, great.
Yeah, so where we're at kind of on the Timpview project is we're moving along with the phase. Right now, they're currently in the new academic wing. There's been some delays due to concrete shortages. I mean, if you're aware of construction, so there's been some delays due to concrete shortages, but they do think they can make it up. We should be okay with that schedule still. So that was nice to hear. There's been a couple hiccups with one of the second floor as they were pouring it. And they overly tightened the supports. And so when they poured the concrete on the second floor, it wasn't supports, it was load bearing. And so those supports started to snap as they were pouring it, and then the floor was shaking and everyone thought the building was coming down. So they scattered and exited the building, and when they had to call in the crew to come inspect the safety and what happened and whatnot. And during that time, the floor dried, and so now they've got to essentially cut out the concrete and chisel it out with jackhammers by hand, and then they're gonna have to re-pour it. So that's they're working through that. Westland's gonna eat the whole cost. That's all their crews. And agreements to do it, so it won't cause anything for us, but other than some things we're gonna have to work around. But the project's moving nicely. There's the sports programs going on there. Football's pretty much shut down for the rest of the year and next year there. We have to move it. We're planning on doing it at Provo High. Unfortunately, it's our best option. We reached out to BYU and they're working with us on a case by case basis to use the old Provo High football field. So there's one game scheduled, I think, in October 13th that we're planning on using that field instead of Provo Highs. So we have been working with them on that. So that's kind of what's going on.
Except for the team's really good. Don't believe that.
The team is really good this year. They were ahead on, was it number 1 and number 2 team in the state, Timpview, and it was up in Warren, Maple Mountain or Corner Canyon. I don't know the team. Sky Ridge. But they were up. It was like 10-0 going into the third quarter, and then all of a sudden they came back and ended up winning the game. So it looks like those two teams could be the teams that end up in the playoffs. So, that's kind of what's going on next year. They're slated to kind of tear down that entire west side of the stadium. That's all coming out. That's partly why there can't be football games there next year. So that cell tower, they told us they've been in contact with the city, working to try to work on an agreement to move that. But I don't know. They haven't indicated it, other than a couple of weeks ago that they planned to have a conversation that was on the books. So I don't know where that was at, but they planned to just try to move that to accommodate, because we're planning on ending that lease no matter what in 2030. So that's kind of where Timpview's at. Any questions?
I've heard from a couple of constituents that, I guess there used to be quite a bit of revenue from the football games being some home games. Is that revenue, like, are they still being able to capture that revenue at all as far as games and the concessions like that and ticket sales?
Correct. Yeah. So what we've got like readers that we're having to have at the Provo High game and the ones that are already there. And as they receive the revenue, they'll just code it towards Timpview's programs. So it'll still be.
So Provo High is not getting it?
Correct.
Okay, so it's still evenly.
Any other questions? Welcome to Patel. There's I thought there was, there's a lunch for you if you'd like to. Join us.
What about parking? Is that going to get worse before it gets better?
Yeah, it will. Unfortunately, I believe the parking lot that they're currently using, once they start tearing down that old academic wing, that's going to impact that parking. So it will get worse before it gets better.
But then they'll put in a nice parking lot where that academic room is. By the end of that.
We have a finish date yet? Is that set the finish date or
So
the final when everything will be done, or when the parking lot will be open, or?
that I apologize.
But it's going to be 2 years, right?
Correct.
All right, thank you. We have an update on safe routes to school, including the new Wasatch Elementary School site. Rob Hunter, our city engineer, one of our city engineers, will present.
I don't necessarily have a presentation. I was at the theater, so I could answer any questions. I know that has been a topic. We met probably close to a year ago with the community council there. I think you guys also since then about different intersections that they feel like will be, high pedestrian use. Specific to Wasatch, we are planning on connecting. I know one of the big items is connecting the sidewalk where it ends right now on the west side of 1450 East. There near the south end. We are working through the plan. It's steep. We've got deep drop curb gutter. We've got right of way, but also grade issues going, connecting into the properties, and so we're trying to work through exactly how, there's there's a lot of design considerations that need to go just because of all the steep grade and everything, but so we're still working through exactly how we're going to do it, but we will have a sidewalk that connects all the way down over to the corner of the Oakmont Lane and Oak Cliff Drive. But there will be a safe crossing on the north side of that. We'll have bulb outs there. We're working with the engineers for the district to tie that over. Another big one is there will be sidewalk, and I believe it's 8-foot sidewalk. It's a white sidewalk there along Oakmont Lane coming down into the site. I know, Derek, you guys were working on tying in the Old Mill Road, having a ped and bike access into the site from there. They're planning on that also. And then there's, like I said, there's several intersections through in the neighborhood that we're looking and seeing, and which ones need to be, just need to have the high visibility crossing versus maybe additional improvements. So.
Is it much more expensive to do a stair sidewalk
From,
just on that? Oakmont is so steep that,
yeah, so you're talking, sorry, I'm talking.
well, whoever has the answer, I don't know.
It's sidewalk.
Yeah, don't answer that. The plan is to put a regular sidewalk down. It will not be, stair step. It'll be, it is a steep. I can't remember the exact slope, somewhere in the 15 to 20% range. So it's a pretty steep road. But our plan right now is to put in a standard sidewalk going down that street and over into the problem is that with putting in a stair step, is then any kids who are riding their bike, you're forcing them to, no matter how young they are, to stay in the street. And what we'd like to do is have something that, smaller kids can bring their bike down. And so I know
it's probably also just a strange grade. So if you went to stair steps, you're messing with people's yards. They'd be terraced and then
covering it up. That is,
I mean, so it's in between.
yeah.
I mean, the yards are not terraced right now, but that would involve, you would have some terraces and then stairs and another terrace.
Right. And so one of the things that we're working through is just because of like how steep that entire area is coming from, everything we're even though we do have some right of way, we would seriously be messing not only with people's what they have landscaped right now, but especially their driveways. And so we're looking to, we don't want to solve the street problem and create a problem for people who've had their home there for 40 years. So we're working through it, but the plan right now is to do a regular sidewalk and do little bulb outs where we're shortening the crossing distance for the kids.
Does 1820 North feed into that school?
1820 north. Yeah,
Thank you.
it does. Yeah.
Okay, and what are the sidewalks like there?
The sidewalks, we have sidewalks going in along the north side, along the south side. There is, right as you get to the south side of the school, that's open right now, but there is a developer who's working on the design for development to go in there that we expect to go in there before the school is done.
Right,
So
so the curve up in that field?
Yeah, yep, yeah, just south of the school site, yep. And so we're working with them on their designs, and as we work through that, then we'll figure out exactly how, that south side of that street is gonna tie over to the school site, but we're working on, kind of preliminary design with them right now.
In the 90s at 820 North, do we have is the right crossings there?
Not currently. We are planning on, that is going to be a signalized intersection. That is what the traffic study found because of well, I think just moving to the school site to there in general would have done it anyways, but especially where Wasatch is the Chinese immersion program. At the Chinese immersion program, there's something like 30% of the kids there are from outside of the boundaries, and so we expect there's going to be, more turning in there, and a signal will be needed. So before the school opens, we want to have a signal at that intersection.
And there's a swap as well?
Yeah.
I don't see the elementary school pretty far. One of the flags and figuring that out.
Right. No, I think I'm trying to remember where the school boundaries end. I think the school. I don't think that I think that's
It's a little bit-
school boundary.
No, it's a little bit, it's further south than that.
It is further south, yeah. So, but if we need, I mean, with those, there will be ped crossings on all 4 ways of that intersection once it's a single intersection. So,
Is there a good way, a good process that we can just check in? Because I think it would help you, because I think that we hear from constituents and sometimes, I don't know if they get moved up in the right priority. Like, you know, they wanted, some, you know, in the neighborhood or that old canal and like all the way from sort of Wymouth Terrace and, sort of making that trail, but I don't know if that has to be done now. I think if it's like, oh, you know, this goes in the project list for 20 years in how that ever works out. Is there a good way that we can sort of, as these ideas come, that we can just check in and go, yep, you're aware, and then, but these are the priorities. So certainly that block and a half of sidewalk is a big deal. But
yeah, so we work with Alex Judd, has kind of taken on the role with the district. So actually, the Safe Routes program is something that is run through the school district, and we've been working with Alex Judd. In fact, we're going to have this year's initial kickoff meeting with him next week. And so we should be meeting regularly. So the community council, the way that it's kind of set up by state code, and that we have found over different years of having it organized, you know, some years better, some years not quite as good. That sticking with the way that's set up in state code is really the best way. Is that to have the community councils, you know, that anybody within that area that has proposals go through the community council, they propose, say this is what, you know, we've all kind of talked together and here's what we want, and then there's a traffic safety committee that includes, so Alex is on that, myself, we have representatives from the police, and then Dixon from the administration, and we talk, you know, about what do we, you know, here's all the proposal, here's the proposal, what do we think we can do right now? How does this fit in priority? Because we get, you know, those requests from the 13 different elementary schools. We have the opportunity, to do requests every year, and so kind of how do we prioritize everything and move forward? So okay. We are, like I said, we're going to have this school year's kickoff meeting with Alex next week. I'm planning on going to can't remember what it is the school district calls it, but it's a meeting that all the community council chairs and principals are supposed to show up to. We'll talk about it again there and make sure that everybody, you know, sends it in their request for the year.
Great. Okay. Yeah, it's important that parents, teachers, principals, school board members, if you see an issue, get that information to somebody that's in one of those meetings so that gets transferred into everybody so we can work on a solution.
Just a reminder, when do community councils are going to be starting up shortly? When do we want them to submit their plan?
The deadline is the end of November, and that gives us a chance to, at the very latest, I mean, the earlier in the school year, the better, but kind of by the end of November, because some of these things are going to take, you know, some of the requests require some money associated with it, and then we need to fit it into the budget. That gives us enough time to kind of do some analysis, have some discussion, and say, yes, this is something we want to move forward with. If we need to budget for it so that we can do it during the summer before the next school year starts. So, and then November. And there's a spreadsheet that Alex has set up for them to put it in.
I have a quick question in regards to Wasatch. I know you were saying that you're already evaluating crosswalks and different things like that. I know there's different levels too of what qualifies for what school zone versus crosswalk or guarded crosswalk, et cetera. Do you already have any kind of idea what we may be looking at, what we may need? Are we going to need a school zone or anything like that? I'm just curious kind of how far the process is on and what we're looking at getting.
In terms of a depending on how many kids are crossing or where they're crossing on 900 East, if there's any kids crossing on 900 East, that's definitely going to need to have a crossing guard on it. There's stuff that is required by code that has to have a school crossing guard that far into the neighborhood, none of the streets are gonna have high enough volumes or speeds that we're expecting that they have to be. And so we'll work with the police department. They have what they call the priority ones, are the ones that they have to, and then they have priority two. If they have people available, they'll staff them.
So the only anticipated one so far is over 9th East.
Anticipated so far. Now, depending on how many school kids we have, and there may be some of the bigger ones, like along, what is it, Briar is the main one that turns into Oak Lane. That we may need that at this point. I'm not anticipating it, but we'll do studies throughout this year, and if we find that it needs, then.
So I think that what the neighborhood is worried about, certainly they sort of give 9th East is on 820 North, 9th East is a given, but then 1112. They're just wondering about how to slow traffic down, because people tend to gain speed, coming from the wide trailheads. We have a lot of students trying to get to, go on the early morning hike and trying to get to class, and so they get a lot of speed coming down the hill.
Right.
And so just trying to figure, even managing speed on those two, 1100 East and 1200 East on 820 is a concern.
Yeah, so that has been expressed to us, and I understand where people are coming from. We are adding bulb outs, so there will be bulb outs on the new development that's coming into 8th West or 8th North. We need to make sure that it's in locations that aren't going to mess with the ability of school buses to get in and out. Now, so there's the possibility of adding some hard improvements to 820 North. There's also like Briar, and I'm trying to remember where all the crossings are. That I guess Briar and Cherry. Those are kind of
those have been sort of in existence as they are. Right. It's the news towards that south end where it's not Briar anymore. It's they're really about 820 and 1100 and 820 and 12. So.
Yeah, so I think I guess so that the speed is probably more an issue on 820, but there's going to be kids crossing in a different direction than maybe they were previously going down.
Coming straight across now. I mean, they'll be going east on Briar,
right?
West on Briar.
And yeah, so we're looking at, there may be intersections that we need to put bulb outs just to because now they're crossing north south instead of east west, and it's a busier street. Maybe we need to put them in there. We may need to put some stuff on 820 North. I think we're still going through the process of, okay, here's all the things that we know we need to do, sending interns out, doing some counts and saying, okay, if there's this many coming this way down these streets, well, now they're all going to be coming down that way. How many kids are we talking about? If there's 30 kids that are coming across an intersection that has a pretty good amount of flow, we need to put some bulb outs there. And then as we kind of see all those, we'll prioritize and say, here's how much funding, we'll put the cost together and start from the top and go down. So we're looking at all of it, I guess is what I'm saying, but I don't have a hard answer of, we've already determined that here's exactly where all those improvements need to go.
Has there been any, even just sort of property on that old canal, like on Old Willow? I mean, people use it as a trail. It's not a trail. It's just a kind of canal. And all the landowners are willing to go, oh yeah, I don't need it. But we don't. I'm trying to manage expectations that is probably not going to be addressed. In coordination with opening the school, they think it should be. And I'm like, no.
Yeah, I don't think so. There's been other areas like that. One of the biggest concerns that we have is if it's back behind people's houses where they have the ability to put up a fence that nobody can see. We don't necessarily want to send a bunch of elementary school kids to during some of the year. They're going to be going down there in the dark,
right?
And with no eyes on them. So right now we're focused on making the street connection safer, not necessarily. Or that had been brought to our attention. I'm not going down right now the path of trying to make that a path. There's too long stretches, in my opinion, too long stretches behind people's homes that no eyes are going to be on them.
So even though kids will use it,
they may. We can't tell people where to walk, but yeah, the more that we encourage them, that part of the safe routes is creating an expectation of here's the safe ways to get there, and 1,000-foot stretch behind people's homes without street lighting, I would not consider it a safe place. I don't want to encourage kids to go down here in what I would not consider a safe place. Yeah.
We need to move on to maybe one more comment. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think in a couple of years when the school's built and we've seen more traffic patterns in that area and pick up and drop off and some of those things, we may need to evaluate the parking permit program in that neighborhood and see if it's working for the homeowners as well as the school needs. So making sure we're not interfering there. I get complaints about that parking permit program regularly, but we just won't know what to address unless we're a couple of years out in that occupancy in the building.
I do want to emphasize one thing. As I said, we're still looking at it. We're still looking at it and bring it to the traffic safety committee that'll include conversation with community council. It's not engineering is going to decide and move forward without talking to anybody. It's we're evaluating, we're bringing that evaluation to the community council and traffic safety committee.
Thank you, Dave and Rob, and I'm sure you'll always be in communication with any questions. Appreciate it. Let's move on to the third item, which is an overview of the pay schedule for Provo teachers. The board is going to present on that.
Is there a way I can project, or I can just explain it too, if that's better.
If we can give a device to connect you or you have a flash drive.
It's
It's easiest if you join this Zoom meeting. If you want to, join the Zoom meeting and then you can share.
Okay.
You want a few minutes to do that, and we can go on to the next item, maybe?
Yep.
Provo School District on upcoming superintendent search.
Want to take that? Sure, for that. So as you probably have heard, we're sad that Keith is retiring this coming July. And so we are in the process of looking for a new superintendent. So the process is long, and you're in city government, you know how these processes are, but it'll be long, but we are hoping to make it very thorough, and also hoping to be able to include all of our stakeholders in the process as well. So right now, the point we're at is we just finished getting presentations from possible search consultants, and the board we're deciding who we want to help us with our search as far as our consultant goes. And we'll be discussing and deciding that at our next board meeting on the 30th. And once that is set and we have our consultant in place, then we'll establish our timeline and whatnot. We hope to be able to finalize our new superintendent around February or March of this coming year. But like I said, it'll include a lot of stakeholder input. We're looking at possible nights where people can come and do questions and answers with candidates. We're looking at doing possible surveys to the community, lots of different ways to try and get involvement. And that's where we're at. So we haven't gotten super far yet, but we're in the process and we're moving on it. Anybody have any questions about that?
I like hearing that parents will be involved. So you'll have question answers with parents and citizens in the community. I love that.
Yeah, absolutely. That's one of our things that's been mentioned multiple times by many board members. We need to make sure the community is very involved in this. It's a big decision and it's going to affect our school district and our kids and in lots of different ways. And so we are prepared to be really thorough because we want to do the best, make the best choice we can. So
I think it's an opportunity not just to find a new superintendent, but to re-engage with the community about the general, not just, what do you have to bring to but what does the district need? What's going on in the district? What is the relationship with the district? All those things I think will be a chance to gather that information and make good use of it.
Great. Good luck.
thank you.
Process. You ready, Derek?
All right, pull up right now.
I apologize. No
I
problem.
haven't seen you on the Zoom meeting yet.
Yeah,
So
I-
I'll just felt to pull out.
We're dying here, Derek.
Is the next item a longer discussion? What is the next one? Yeah, that's kind of a longer discussion.
This is the hosts has another meeting in progress.
Should be the.
I don't know if I have the right one.
Oh, no, you click on that.
I guess I could ask a question about this. I think this was a question from somebody from the council. I'm not, it wasn't. So do you want to ask like what you're kind of looking for? Or what the Zoom sent?
Yeah, so there are several school teachers in my neighborhood. And they mentioned that as they were going and doing their trainings, they're teaching at different school districts, as new teachers, that they saw many formerly Provo school district teachers at the training because they're going to different schools. And the reason for that, I was told, and that's why I wanted to check with all of you, was that even though Provo starts off just a little bit lower on their pay grade, as teachers stay in, they don't advance as much as teachers in other school districts. So after a few years, our teachers are far behind teachers in other schools, and that's causing attrition. So I wanted to know if that's accurate and what the situation actually is and how our pay schedule for our teachers is affecting our retention rate for those teachers.
So I can speak to some of that. So for more than 15 years, Provo district as a whole has led the state in teacher mobility. Meaning they'll go, and part of that is the structure. We have a lot of districts, like, you know, Murray School District in the middle of Salt Lake County, they have actually trouble staffing their schools at the beginning of the year. We never have that trouble because we have proximity to universities, and so we have an ample supply. This year we started fully staffed, which was not every school district, but with young teachers, they're starting their career. And we do Jason Cox of our HR does do exit interviews, and talks about, you know, why you're leaving. With young teachers, there's some teachers that just leave the profession early and they just go, you know what, this was my first job teaching. We get a lot of those in Provo, and teaching is not for me, especially right now. And they're not trading districts. They're just going, I'm going to another career. Some do, as soon as they're happy to have a job, maybe while another spouse is still in a graduate program, and then they'll move on. And then some will go, that lifetime earning is significantly different. And there are a couple of structural things about that. One is that Provo School District is not a growth district. So our immediately surrounding districts, they get an additional line item of funding from the state, you know, for growth, where they go, oh, you're growing at 2% or 1.8% is considered explosive growth development. But that 1.8% is basically, you know, 1,000 students a year. And they're hiring new people, but they do not build new buildings. They say, will you take another student in your class? And then we'll pay you a little more. So they're not adding teachers, so that salary bump that there's funding there for that salary bump. We don't have that, and our community also, you know, our teachers say, what about our class sizes? And also we've maintained our commitment to neighborhood schools, and so that helps in our class sizes. And so we try and explain those benefits a little bit to our teachers, but especially I think especially in inflationary times, sort of philosophical or well-being things do not pay the bills, and so that it becomes heightened. And so I think we're in a bit of a, but at the same time, I think that we're really, there's not a single board member that I don't think that isn't committed to evaluating that every time, but that's truth in taxation. That's your taxpayers. That's, you know, when we do a tax increase, that means what can you pay police officers? Because that's a tax increase that's going to come too, and we're sensitive to those things. But we've been fairly aggressive. I hope that Derek, you know, over our last 4 years, what's been our percentage increase for teachers overall?
Before that, it's been last 4 years. almost 30%.
Yeah. And so we're pushing that envelope as far as aggressive without creating taxpayer backlash.
So the 3% is increase in teacher salary over the last 4 years?
Yes. So, basically, some has been 8, some has been 12, some has been, some years, depending on what's been available. Half of that is funded from, there has been, you hear a lot of education people getting really mad at the legislature in Utah. We should recognize they've had record funding for education over the last 6 years, basically. And so, but that is half the funding for our teacher salary. The rest has to come from local sources. But we've been aggressive in that. I think that, but keeping up in that, I think that's one of the reasons that, this is where I'll step off from the board and go, maybe I think that it's probably time for our district to look at some adjustment in truth and taxation every year instead of every other year. Where that's been our practice. But we've got to at least, even if I think that those every other year it's a larger jump. If it's every year it's a smaller jump. But teachers also know we're working on it to create that retention, which is just on everybody's mind. But even when we were almost really level, Provo still has a retention problem just because we tend to get young teachers.
Right, so there's a demographic issue with our teachers
Yes.
that causes
I
part of
think
it.
Derek's ready.
Okay.
Actually, I just want to add something to what McKay just said. For some individuals, of course, take-home pay is the #1 issue. There are other issues as well. We have the most generous leave provision in our contract for teachers of any, at least at the last review, of any district in the region. We have a very rich professional development set of opportunities to get in surveys. We get 96% approval rating from our teachers as they take part in that. That's almost unheard of for a teacher to be spending time learning how to do other things as opposed to doing necessarily what they want to be doing, things that are prescribed by us. So generally speaking, between those things, they enrich the overall picture here. We hear a lot about pay. Pay is important, and some people do leave the district for more pay. As McKay mentioned, we have a neighboring district that didn't have the ability to add more space, and their only solution was to say, work longer hours and we'll pay you more. That's comparing apples to oranges, because we don't have that same model. In fact, our teachers have specifically requested that we don't go to that model. So there are a lot of contextual things that differentiate us from other districts, and it's important for you to know.
Yeah, that's, I appreciate that. You mentioned a 30% increase total over the period of 4 years, but how does that compare with increases in other districts? Because I'm sure they must have been doing adjustments as well.
Right.
This is it. Okay. Good to hear that.
Well, that's one of the things that I do is I track how much our employees earn compared to other districts. I pull their salary schedules, and I actually do a longitudinal how much of their career earning, not just a snapshot of how much they're earning right now. This is our master's teachers, okay? So this is master's level teachers is salary schedule comparison. So what you mean is we're the orange line, and then everybody else is kind of, Alpine, Nebo, Tooele, Ogden, and Logan, which are our neighboring districts or similar size kind of sister districts. Or
The bad one at the bottom.
Was it
ours is the orange at the bottom.
Okay.
Big. Yeah, big.
The bad orange, not the good orange.
What's the focus of this graph? So this is showing that our teachers over their career earn much less. That's their career earning projection, how much they will earn at each year of their career. Along the bottom, there's the years of service, and then here's their earnings. And you can see Alpine, this blue line that is tracking right here. Their goal right now their goal is to get above $75,000 as fast as possible for their teachers. The reason why is because the research has shown that employees, the sooner they get to that mark, the less they start looking for other places to go. That is the level that people start to feel that there's enough discretionary income that they don't leave for other jobs just for a raise. So they've nailed that, where they're ratcheting that up as fast as they can, but then they continue that progression all the way up through the salary schedule. So you can see their master's level teachers ends over $100,000, where ours is, 84.
Master level means what they've been teaching for so many years.
Master's in education. Yep,
Master's degree.
That's the way there.
Okay. So how does Alpine justify the additional, where's the revenue?
So here's how Alpine does it. They run a very efficient model. They have a productivity model where they pay their teachers one extra prep period. For their prep period, they teach on that. The other thing they're doing is their class sizes are larger. Okay. The other thing that they don't have working against them is we have our DLI programs at all the different schools that are different in what they're teaching. So you have Wasatch with Chinese, you have Edgemont with French, you have Canyon Crest with the Portuguese, Spanish. Thank you. So all those create different things, and then what happens is our enrollments at each of the schools is only about 50% from that boundaries on each of those DLI schools. So if we were to try to redraw boundaries, we're only going to be able to redraw 50% of those kids to another one because the other ones are just opting in. So there's what's called economies of scale, right? And the other thing Alpine does is they have elementaries that are 1,200 students or larger. We have elementaries that are between 300 and 600. And overhead on an elementary is $1.5 million almost. So when we have 3 elementaries for their one, we're spending roughly, $4.5 million for overhead to their 1.5 million. So 2 million. They have a little extra because of the size, but they're just running a much more efficient model. So
Well, efficient in money, but not necessarily in salary or,
correct.
right, so
Correct.
it's a matter of balancing what our community
Exactly.
wants. Do they want to pay a little bit more for some of these better benefits of smaller classrooms and all these DLI programs and all these things that people love?
Walking in schools.
Or do we want to follow something that's more, monetarily efficient and
And when we say productivity, that means that they pay them to do some things and they require them to do other things. So they have to pay. So when we say they buy their preparation period, that means, that grading, we still expect it to be done. And that's in the evenings, and that's not an hourly, that's just in your wage. So we're gonna take up every bit of your 8-hour day and require other things from you that we don't pay for. This is how the productivity models work. And so there is, when it comes to just, and I think it's important to know with our exit interviews, and Jason tells me that it's about 1.4% that of our teachers that leave for salary. Overall is about 4.5%, but that means we have a 10% churn rate over every other year. That's what leads us, but only 1.5% leave for salary. And then weighing that with taxes and these other benefits is what we're trying to do, but it's not all about the money, but it's a lot about the money, and we're always working about that.
Okay, help me understand 2 things. So let me get the percentage right. Your exits interviews indicate what percentage of those living are living?
About, depending on the year, about 1.3 to 1.5.
Of all the people leaving or?
No, but
Everyone was the people leaving.
Yeah.
For the people.
That sounds like about a quarter.
That's 15%.
About a quarter. So we have about 4.5% that leave. So maybe a
3/4 of your departures have nothing to do with money. At least
2/3, yeah, 2/3 of Mark can have nothing to do with it. It's life circumstance where I just don't want to be a teacher. Or my husband went to another graduate school, or all these other factors.
So I mean, at the heart of the retention issue is just like our police department. You lose quality people. experience.
On top of that, I think our greatest concern, more than leaving, is I don't know if we're getting the number of people in education departments in colleges, they're becoming teachers, is shrinking. And so that's shrinking, and we're not getting the top third. That top third is going to, when they can make the commute. Yeah, sometimes, they want the shorter commute, and my husband's still, or my wife is still in school, so we'll be here. But if it's, increasingly, these are single people, and they just go, hey, who's got the best? Is that Canyons? Is that Jordan? It's not just Alvin and Nebo. They're looking. And that's how that's working. So those top teachers is
the money problem, it's the quality of teaching.
and we have great teachers, and that's why, one of the motivations for us to have great professional development is we need to support them. We have young teachers. We have to do this. It's not really even a choice. We have to be great at professional.
So do you see yourself doing great professional development for teachers who are leaving? You're preparing them to be great teachers somewhere else.
Well, we're losing, 4.5% a year. That means we're keeping that many other, more than 90% of our teachers. So I don't think we're lost too much on our investment in professional development.
I think the most productive question you probably ask is how can council help?
Well, it's something that, I think that where we can communicate just a little bit over, truth and taxation, and we're not, there was a year where the council debated a little bit of a salary raise for a couple extra police officers, and in the end, basically none of you currently, but some of the former board members said, oh, we can't do it because that greedy school district. And then we're just trying to.
The counselor said that?
Yeah, that was in the meetings, the school district just raised taxes, so we can't do this for our police officers. And if we know public safety, we need traffic, we need all these things. If we can just, I know even some momentum around this meeting is this a good meeting? This is a good meeting, because understanding what our pressures are, and us understanding yours, so that we can be supportive when we get to those hard things. And raising taxes is always a hard thing, and that's a large, it's a majority of our expenditures in the district is for our teacher salary. And so it's a very.
What about housing, cost of living stuff? I'm sure somebody would love to talk about ADUs and how they help teachers. Very chill.
That is a draw from our teachers, because that cheaper house in the sagebrush in Eagle Mountain, well, suddenly that job at the junior high in Eagle Mountain looks more, it's a better community. And so that is another factor. And, all those things, that's, probably another reason why we lead in mobility, but have done for a long, long time.
We have 5 minutes left, and this is a really good and important conversation. But it did seem like there was at least the final item is a much longer conversation than 5 minutes. Building community seems like maybe a good hour on its own. But maybe I could at least address. We could at least address what sounds like a concern about or interest in what the new neighborhood program is going to look like. Is that kind of the thrust of the question?
Yeah, I had a conversation with my replacement's replacement.
Okay.
Yesterday. She wasn't too happy.
Yeah.
Well, and I was just curious about what it's gonna look like, so then we can know how to interact with that program and help utilize, communication. And
Yeah.
I think some of us have been in contact with other, neighborhood chairs, because that's gonna be changing, like how is that interaction gonna be for us?
Well, in the interest of now less than 5 minutes, maybe what I'll do is say two quick things, and then maybe I'll ask someone who's on the neighborhood committee who feels like they can give the elevator pitch on the changes. The changes will be implemented in January. And we have unfortunately been without a communications director in the city council office for a while now, and we're in the process of trying to hire a replacement, and that person has an immediate list of things to do to help reassure current neighborhood chairs that the neighborhood program is not dead, that we have not turned our back on them, and help them understand where we're headed in the next couple of months. Does anyone from the neighborhood committee want to give a quick overview of what the changes are, please?
Basically, it used to be that the neighborhoods voted on their neighborhood chair. That will not be in place anymore. They will send in applications and we will appoint them. We've also taken the individual neighborhoods and condensed them down to 5 districts. So it will be a larger group that will meet together. The neighborhoods still exist, we're not getting rid of them. A huge issue in the neighborhood program was communication. It relied on a neighborhood chair to communicate everything. And they didn't even have everyone's email or phone number, or like, you're very limited. You know, we didn't provide them with any resources that way. So all communication will go through the council now, where we can use utility details and hopefully reach everyone. So everyone can be notified of when a meeting of that will be. It will be done live and here and also on Zoom. So before there wasn't always a Zoom option. There will always be a Zoom option. It'll be controlled by our staff, where it'll be much easier to access, reliable, and there'll be minutes, there'll be video. So it can be looked at after the fact. So as far as reaching everyone and the communication, it will be a million times better. You don't go, oh, I could go to a meeting, so you have no idea what happened. Even voting could be done through Zoom. There will be some voting as far as, you know, what's on the agenda or what the leadership will be in the community council, which will be between 7 and 11 people out of the districts.
I have something here.
Yes.
Just in the past, I think there's been a lot of ambiguity. I mean, it's a program that changed over many decades or evolved or had different perceptions. And sometimes folks in the community would reach out, like maybe the school district or maybe BYU would reach out directly to chairs and kind of bypass the council. But whereas this is a program of the council, it's important to direct these through the council staff and work through the council and make sure that everyone's on the same page and communicating, so that no one's being, you know, bypassed, and that we are running the right things through that program, because it's not a catch-all. It's not going to solve every problem that you have or we have or a citizen has. It's more of a communication avenue. And so I think it's important. This is a GM thing, but I think it's important that we kind of manage expectations and manage what flows through that via the council office.
There will still be grant programs available to neighborhoods. There will still be development and zoning going through the neighborhoods. What we're going to add, since we're doing it here, and since it'll be, instead of 44 neighborhoods, 5 districts, it'll be more manageable for us to use staff, whether it's the police one time or development services and enforcement or public works to cover sidewalks or some concern. Have our departments come and do meetings and educate the public and those neighborhoods, something that they're concerned about and that they want to learn more about. So,
and you may be, I mean, I'm sure you're aware that there was, you know, this wasn't without controversy, and it was a bit of a challenge for us to communicate to the public that this was actually not an intent. Our intention was not to squelch public voice, but actually improve it and make it more uniform across the city. We had a very serious problem of some neighborhoods who were very engaged, very organized, and others which were not hardly at all. And we wanted to make sure that there was more, you know, evenly distributed services and communications across the entire city. We had some concerns that people treated this more as a politically elected office, which it was not. It was not about creating policy. It was about establishing links of communication and engagement with the local communities. And so we felt like this was a better solution to that particular problem. But we've suffered in the last month or two without somebody to be regularly communicating. And so that is definitely, you know, like I say, something that we're going to be trying to fix as soon as we can. And we're looking into the possibility of potentially hiring an additional half position to help support the neighborhood program even more if that becomes necessary, so that this runs as well as it can. we just felt it was kind of untenable with 34 elections needing to happen on a regular basis and one person managing it. It was a very complicated process. So we hope this will work really well, and we're pretty excited about it and confident that it will be an improvement. But we're in limbo right now, so we acknowledge there's some lack of communication.
Question with that, how many people will be in each district? How many people will be appointed for each district?
The whole area that lives in those districts, every citizen can come. We will be appointing 7 to 11 or 15 people.
Depending on how many.
Yes,
apply.
exactly.
So it'll be a board for each area.
Yes.
Yeah, and really
And
we
our-
want to have a person from
From
each
every
neighborhood.
neighborhood. Our goal was to get at least one for every neighborhood, for sure.
So each of the 5 areas will have about 7 to 15 neighborhoods. Is that what we're getting?
No.
No,
Like 7-ish.
7-ish neighborhoods. Okay.
Yeah, there's 34 right now, so we reduced it down to 5 districts with, roughly 7.
So we're hoping that, they each have 2. They each have 2 would be fantastic, right? Kind of like the chair, vice chair thing. That we already have.
And we will immediately involve the current structure in that process.
Yeah, so all current structure grandfathers into the program in January if they so desire. There's a little bit of some of them are definitely angry. But we hope they all stay on.
Well, we're out of time. We really appreciate everybody coming together, and I do hope that we can have a conversation about building community. That's seemed to me to be a very important conversation. So hopefully we can keep up the communications. Obviously, we enjoy interacting and with you ad hoc, offline, when you have issues coming to us or vice versa. We can ask you questions and help you understand that we're eager to be collaborative whenever we can. And we also appreciate the challenge and difficulty of public service very personally and very directly. So we appreciate what you do and what you do for our community. So thanks for joining us today. If there is no objection, we will now adjourn the Provo Municipal Council meeting by unanimous consent.
George,
Thank you so much.
did we introduce appropriately, Justin?